Now, there are a lot of people who are still talking about this story, regarding Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely, and as well as they should. It's a story that should be talked about. And here we are giving our own take to the story as well. But however, we're going to look at this story a little bit different than I would say just about everybody. And that is this. And this is the question that I'm going to pose to you is, how are you using your brain to process this particular story? That's what we're going to get into today. So first and foremost, absolutely, it is a very tragic story involving the death of a young man by the name of Jordan Neely, who was known locally, in certain sections of town in New York City as a street entertainer, and that's what he did. And one of his things that he was known for was his ability to mimic a lot of the moves of Michael Jackson, and and I've heard he also did Prince or whatever as well. And so it was one night, of course, he got on the train, or one day, whatever time it was, he gets on the train and, he's making some serious demands for some food. He just starts yelling. And again, this is according to witnesses that were there. And, he was yelling things like, hey, listen, I want some food and I'm not going to take no for an answer. And he also said, I'm willing to die. And so on that same train, you have another person by the name of Daniel Penny, who's a retired Marine, who basically saw this and heard this, and immediately, I guess he clicked into his, this mode of, okay, I'm not going out because of someone like this. There was also an account where this Jordan Neely was actually getting in the face of some people. So, Daniel Penny took it upon himself. He said, hey, listen, no, we're not going to do this. And so he proceeded to jump on this individual and unfortunately choked him out, and he ended up dying. And so, of course, this story has all the elements, all the bells and whistles, that will immediately attract the masses. Here you have a white male, young white male, blue eyes, blonde hair, former military, that's quote unquote preying on this black person, a young black man who was just kind of just not really doing anything. This is, I'm saying, the initial take that a lot of people, when they first look at this particular story here. And so the people just kind of jumped on this story big time on both sides. And so as it on the side of the Jordan Neely supporters, you had calls to action like these particular videos here.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
I'm tired.
Tired.
I know you're looking for us to be like, oh, go and march. Go and march. No. This weekend, I want you to hold a community event everywhere from the Bronx to Houston to Seattle to Florida. Black people, whole community event, and talk about what you need.
Because to be real, they didn't even try. Once the lesser charge was removed, they came back an hour later and said it was deadlock. Less than an hour and 20 minutes later, they said not guilty. These wonderful white people, I hope they celebrate their Christmas while the Neely family is praying and asking God for comfort. Goddamn them and goddamn America.
Went to this trial. I watched the white people. I watched the non-black POCs all say they were scared of Jordan. But the black man testified that he was not. So we got a problem. So all the white people here, y'all got work to do. Stay the fuck out of black people business. Go in your neighborhood and do the anti-blackness work in there. I don't need your opinion. I don't need no Marxist bullshit.
Okay.
I can read Black Marxism on my own.
Okay.
Y'all been reading 275 years in English before we was.
Right.
Go in your own communities and correct this bullshit. And stay out of our fucking business.
Thank you.
Because the white people on that jury didn't give a fuck about what they heard on the stand. Jordan Neely approached no one. Daniel Penny dropped him where he stood. They made those witnesses draw on a diagram where he got dropped. It was right after he entered that train car. I sat right there and listened to it. So white people, y'all got work to do. Yes. You better deal with your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your college professors, your bank lenders, your car loaners, all that. Stay the fuck.
What's his name? Jordan Neely. Say his name. Jordan Neely. What's his name? Jordan Neely.
And so, you know, between these videos and then what we've been seeing repeatedly on social media, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what does it lead to? And okay, so we've let all that out, not saying that the emotional part isn't warranted, because it is. But we've displayed our emotions on this, but what does it lead to? Well, this is the part of our brain that we've been talking about on this platform and is referred to as the amygdala. Okay, the amygdala is the part of our brain that processes emotions such as like fear, anger, excitement, all kinds of things that relates to our emotions. That's, again, this is our amygdala. And so, but what happens is that if we stimulate that amygdala way too much, it actually becomes enlarged. And this is something that we've been talking about on this platform just for the past maybe few weeks now. As Black Americans, when we first came to this country, we automatically were switched to using primarily the amygdala part of our brains, because the other part of another thing that the amygdala does is determine fight or flight. And so when you're thrown into a situation where you either got to put them up or you got to run away or whatever, and you're always on edge, well, that's what the amygdala, that's its responsibility to determine that. And it always, over time, it will always have you living on an edge. Even, I'm talking about mentally now, where you always feel like you got to just keep, you know how we even say it as Black people, we'll say, you know, keep your head on a swivel, you know. And while I do understand that sentiment, do we always have to keep our head on a swivel every time we go out? You know, is there not any time at all we can't? Well, again, what happens is that between the realities that are out there and the things that we engage in on social media, what we're doing is we're putting the amygdala as the primary driver of our brains and how we process information that we see, such as this story. And so what happens is it creates an imbalance. You need the amygdala, but there has to be a balance on how we use it. Now we're going to switch to another part of our brain that's called the prefrontal cortex. Okay, that's like right here in the front part of your brain. And so what that part of your brain, what it does, that's the part where it thinks things through. In other words, it comes up with plans, strategy, processes information, and getting you to kind of understand the context of what's going on so that you know how to move forward. So we're going to switch in this demonstration here. Now we're going to switch to the prefrontal cortex part of our brain. We're going to look at this story again, but this time there's going to be a different approach than what we talked about earlier when we were using our amygdala. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this story again. So there's a lot of articles that I saw as I was looking into this story that were saying, like, you know, that talking about how the system, whatever that is, failed Jordan Neely. And so that had me thinking, okay, when you say system failed them, what are you talking about? Because I have to determine what define system for me. Are you talking the government system, or are we talking about the home system? Okay, so that's the first part that I have to determine, you know, when I'm reading these articles that are alleging that the system let them down. And so as you would expect, the articles, they all are referring to how the government system let them down. And I'll explain that in a little bit here. But for me, when I look at these stories, I always start at the foundation. Whatever it is, whatever the story is, I always start at home base. And for me, in this case, I always start in the home. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, yeah, the home, what happened there? What happened that caused this young man to end up in a situation like that? Another thing that I noticed was that how the father was written out of this young man's storyline, Jordan Neely's storyline. And the father, by the name of Andre Zachary, I'm going to play a clip here momentarily. He clearly, first of all, Neely clearly had a father, but as I'm reading these different articles, they're not mentioning him. And they mention, that, what he took place earlier in his childhood. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. They mentioned that he was in foster care. They mentioned of who took care of him for a little bit after that. But the father is not even mentioned. But the whole time you're saying the system failed. So it has got me thinking even more. So let me play this clip for you of his father. And let's just listen in, and I'll come right back.
I just want to say I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. Really, really hurts. What are we going to do, people? What's going to happen to us now? I had enough of this. System is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this.
Let's do something about it. Too often. We have Eric Garner's mother here.
So anyway, more about Jordan Neely, his mother. I think he actually witnessed his mother being murdered, right? So as a child, so can you imagine as a child witnessing that? And then it wasn't too long after that, he was pushed into the foster care system. Now, on this platform, we have talked about extensively about some of the goings on in the foster care system. One of the big things that has been going on for a long time is how the foster care system works hand in hand with pharmaceutical companies as they're feeding in these psychotropic drugs to people, young people that are in the foster care system. All they have to do is complain or say that, hey, I'm having a bad day or I got a headache. All of a sudden now they're being fed all these psychotropic drugs. And then what ends up happening is a lot of times these children, when they age out of the foster care system, they're pushed out into the street, and now they got mental issues and, that have been compacted thanks to all these drugs and stuff. So this is just the normal thing that has been happening in the foster care system for a long time. And with Jordan Neely is no different. So he had the tragedy that took place. Then also the tragedy, I guess, of a father that doesn't seem like he was there. And then what happens is he was in the foster care system. He gets out of it. I believe it was his aunt who intervened and tried to take him in for a little bit, but he ended up leaving that situation. And that's when he went out into the street and was doing whatever he had to do, to survive at that point. But I'm getting back to the father here. I'm asking myself, because he's saying here how much he misses him and all of that. And I'm asking, what happened? I don't know what happened. Did the system push him away? Was he in jail? We don't know. We don't know any of these things. But what we do know is that the father was not there. And what we also know is that when either parent isn't present, it does have an adverse effect on the child, hands down. That's not even an argument. So Jordan Neely was faced with a lot of tragedies early in his life. And these are the things that contributed to him being out there in the street, coupled, and that led to, the mental issues and all that stuff that he suffered. Here's a video that I found of him kind of freaking out on a passerby on the street. Let's take a look at this.
But shirt, yeah, rainbow.
Angry Michael. See you, Michael. Yo, that guy was crazy.
What, nigga?
What are you gonna do?
Nigga, I'm gonna smack that fucking camera out your hand, nigga. What, nigga? Fuck
I'll
out
call
of
a
here,
cop.
nigga.
I'll call a
You gonna
cop.
punch me, nigga?
I'll
Do
call a
something.
cop. You gonna do something? Whoa, swinging,
What,
huh?
nigga?
Swinging, man,
Call
huh?
the cop, nigga.
I'll call the
Call
cop.
the
I will.
fucking cop, nigga.
I will. You ain't gonna do nothing. I just stepped on your jacket. I just stepped on your jacket, Michael.
Now, the next thing that, again, we're still using our prefrontal cortex, part of our brain, is we're looking at, is this a trend? Is he the only one that's out here? I'm talking about young black men or even young black women, for that matter, that are out here in the streets that have mental issues, that have similar backstories as he does. It may not involve any kind of murder or anything like that, but are there similar cases like a Jordan Neely? You know, because again, Jordan Neely's gone now. But again, using this part of our brain, there should be something there that says, what can we do to prevent more Jordan Neelys to end up in these situations like this, right? Well, the answer is absolutely and unfortunately yes. There are many cases of young people and middle-aged and older people that are out here in the streets homeless, some of which do have mental issues, some that just can't find a place to live. But we're going to focus more on the mental issue piece of it, right? And so there's a channel here on YouTube, I believe it's called Atlanta Street Interviews. And here are just a few examples that I want to play for you that's right out here in the streets. So let's take a look at these examples.
So, and that's what I'm saying, because you get a check. If your mom is getting your check, technically she should be taking care of you. The first time that you sold yourself, what was that feeling like afterwards?
Hard. I feel like I wanted to hurt myself. I already hate myself, so it won't make no difference.
You know, you seem like you may have some mental stuff going on, but you don't seem like you're not smart.
I'm very smart.
Yeah, I was about to say, when I just asked you to diagnose how the lack of your dad's presence affected you, you articulated that very well. Why do you think he was in, you say IEP?
IOP.
ILP?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think he was in ILP?
Because
That's like around the same age that your dad left. Okay, so how do you think that trauma affected you?
very much.
Why wasn't you living with your mom?
Because I was in foster care because my mom put me there.
At what age did she put you in foster care?
11.
And is there anything that happened at 11 that caused that to happen? Does your mom and your stepdad, do they know that like you've been homeless all this time?
My mom know, yeah. My mom know.
What about your stepdad?
Yeah, he know.
What do they think about it? Wow, so it must have been a pretty bad beating. How did the state find out about it?
She threw me outside and we had a next door neighbor.
Have you ever talked to anybody about it?
No.
Let's try to jump into the meat and potatoes. There was something that you were saying that I'm gonna keep it all the way real and this and that. What was it that you was talking about or thinking about when you was saying that? Is there a particular incident or event or anything that occurred?
My mom, which is no longer here, and I know she's looking at me, was a hard-working woman. I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the middle. I was going to kill my mama and my younger sister because of the treatment. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Started trafficking a lot of cocaine to this town and got a lot of money. All through Peace Creek City, all through Coweta County.
It's just on my spirit to ask this, but when you were younger, did any type of trauma take place that you did or that you was a victim of?
Yes.
So finally, again, still staying with our prefrontal cortex, the question now we're left with is, what do we do about it specifically? Now that we know, we've looked at this from a analytical perspective. We of course, the emotional part is warranted and justified. That's what makes us human. But now we're using this part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, and now we're asking these questions that's going to help us to prevent these kind of stories from happening again and again. So my hope is that by looking at stories that pop up like this, and there are going to be more of them in the future, make sure you take the time and use your whole brain when you're processing it, as opposed to just staying with your amygdala part of your brain. Because when you stay there, it doesn't really do anything. There is no solution. You just scroll to the next story, you scroll to the next tragedy, but there's never really any kind of solution. What we want to start seeing are some real solutions. And we've all been equipped with the equipment that's needed to provide that. We don't have to look at the government. We don't need more funding to use our prefrontal cortex. We've all have it. So the question is, are you going to start using it for stories like this? So I hope you got something out of this video, and thank you as always for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.